Welcome to Raised on D&D podcast. Raised on D&D brings you inspirational interviews with tips and strategies to enrich your family's gaming experience. Your host for Raised on D&D has been a dungeon master for over 30 years and a father to 3 gamers. Here is Nick Cardarelli.
Welcome back, gamers. I'm your host, Nick Cardarelli, and this is Raised on D&D. My next guests are from Melbourne, Australia. She has worked with Sirenscape at Gen Con and PAX Australia. He is a ludologist known for gaming-related positivity and silliness on Twitter. You know her from her acting in video games such as Dead Static Drive and Stormrend, and on TV sitcom Ferguson Hell, feature film Out of Order, and web series Ninja Panda. He's working on a few game designs, including a kids' time travel themed game. She is writing a feature film and TV series pilot. They have both appeared on Geek and Sundry's show, Game the Game. Please welcome the very talented Jessica Hutchinson and the tabletop owlbear, Darryl Browne. Hi, guys.
Yay! That was so nice. I'm like, oh wow, I feel accomplished.
We're like back and forward in between. It's great.
Well, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having us. This is so awesome.
Yeah, good fun.
Well, we want to get to know you guys as gamers. So, Jessica, you were telling me that Darryl introduced you to tabletop role-playing games and Dungeons & Dragons. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. I mean, like I had played other tabletop games or board games as a kid, but not the kind of games you would obviously see these days. You know, these days we have just such an amazing kind of variety of types and styles of games. My favorite was a game when I was a kid called Mousetrap. And I loved it because of the physical kind of tactile practicalities of putting together.
Plays that game, though. Everyone just puts together the trap and then goes, look at the thing.
I played it, thank you very much.
Built it up as you went along.
I enjoyed it. I was an only child. It was very entertaining to me. So that was my favorite game growing up. And then we started dating, when I turned 18, after I turned 18, my gosh. And you used to game a lot with your high school buddies. And so I think at the time you guys were playing Blood Bowl. You were playing Blood Bowl. And Andrew mentioned that he wanted to start up another role-playing game, and you all had 3.5, because I don't think 4 had come out at that point.
It was definitely before that.
Yeah, it was kind of just before 4th ed came out. And so you had all of the 3.5 books, and you were like, oh cool, we're gonna start a new campaign. And I went, oh, I kind of want to join in. I want to know what it's all like. I'm an actor. I love characters. I love adventure. I love stories. This sounds like a great opportunity to try something new and something fun. And I kind of weaseled my way into the table. And I remember, that they handed me, the player's handbook and the character sheet, and I'm looking at everything and I'm going, I have no idea what's going on. What do I do with this? And I was creating my character. You used to give me shit for this, but when I was rolling up my character, a friend Stephen said to me, you only use pips. I only use pips when you're rolling up your character stats. And I'm like, oh, why? He's like, it's just, trust me, you get better results that way. And so I went out and I bought pips.
Could have dice with numbers written on it. Oh no, it's got to be wacky pips.
Can't have dice with numbers written on it. It has to be the pips, like the 1 dot for 1, the 2 dots for 2, etc. And so I rolled my character with them, and Stephen's probably chuckling to himself, thinking he's a criminal mastermind and getting me to do something so silly. And you're laughing at me because you think it's ridiculous, because it's not true at all. But I swear to this day, every time I've had to roll up a character and I use pips, amazing stats. Amazing. Better than average. Couldn't possibly be happier with any of my stats. And so so I rolled up this character, and she was a ranger. Her name was Claudia, and she was awesome. And I died in the first game, but DM Andrew was just so
You spent all that time making that character up.
Because I'd spent all that time making that character up, and he was just like, no, that's just not fair. So he kind of just waved his magic DM wand and allowed me to live, and he just kind of changed the amount of damage that I was supposed to receive. So it's because of this fellow here that I ended up getting into D&D, and I adore it. I think it's one of the funnest ways of being able to express yourself in different ways through characters, and it's all storytelling. I love it so much.
It's wonderful. And Darryl, how did you get started with Dungeons and Dragons? When did you start playing tabletop role playing?
Well, I started playing in sort of early teens, but I was exposed to it from probably about 6 or so, because my uncle used to have all the first edition stuff.
Which uncle was it?
Uncle Phil.
Good old Uncle Phil.
Yeah. So Uncle Phil had all this stuff with all these first edition stuff and that, and he let me sort of flick through all the bits and look at all the funky artwork and all those sort of classic early module stuff that he had, some of those ones from it. So the classic keep and some of the ones out of, I think he had a couple of Ravenloft ones as well, if I remember. I think it was Ravenloft that was his jam. I can't remember right now.
Did he still have like a complete first edition set?
He had the original 3 books.
Yeah.
So he had the core set books from those. So he had all those ones, and even at that stage, he hadn't really used them for a while at that point, but it was still, they were there on a shelf, and I looked around through them and that. And he took me through how to sort of make up a character and that sort of thing with it all. So I made up some bits and pieces and stuff with that when I was younger, but never got to sort of play anything. Just because, I was like the oldest of the kids in my family, and my uncle was the only one who was sort of like into any of that sort of stuff. So it wasn't like any sort of, I guess we could have done a one-on-one thing out of it all, but that never came up as an option. Plus, at that stage, I was more interested. I was just as interested to sit there and play on his Commodore Amiga and play all the original Star Wars games and stuff like that.
Fancy.
Oh, it was cool.
So fancy.
Watching that little speeder bike go through the thing, and anyway. So it wasn't until sort of early high school, and there's a core group of my friends who 4 of us still hang out to this day. We all met up in year 7. So we were like 13 and that, and we all still hang out to this point. So I'm extremely lucky in that front, because now I'm 40 and we still catch up and everything with it. But we started playing what was second ed at the time, and what they kind of ended up in 2.5 for a little bit, where they end up sort of splitting the stats down the middle, so you had that little 1 point shift either way sort of thing with it all. And
yes.
I can't remember what the hell they called that one now, but we played a little bit of that for it, and then we tried a couple of other different systems and everything, and then third ed came out, and then into 3.5, and that was our big broach into everything with it. So we ended up with pretty much every damn book that between the 4 of us, we had everything, and a couple of us, had all of it over again sort of thing. So between all of us, we had everything, and most of us had most of it sort of thing over the run of it. And we got just fully immersed and just played character and campaign after campaign, and that was sort of the foundation point for most of our one for it for D&D.
If you can hear anything, you're patting as a dog.
Yeah.
It's right next to the photo. I might put it online so you can see this beautiful boy just taking all of the attention.
He's being a little bit good, but just stay on his own. Come
on, buddy. Go.
Now, Darryl, you're keeping up the family tradition. Now you're the Uncle Darryl who's introducing role-playing games to, is it your niece, your nephew?
Yeah. So I've got 2 nieces and 2 nephews, but the oldest niece is 4. So she's still a little bit young for being able to role play that, but it's one that I'm hoping to get to with it. But I'm seeding the ground with board games and everything, all the different sort of tabletop stuff you can do. A friend of mine, Ivan Van Melman, wrote a book called The ABCs of RPGs, which became ABCs of D&D, and I got a copy of that one for her when she was younger, and my sister being a bit of a gamer as well. she happily read that one along to my niece and stuff when she was little. So she got to have the approach of different all the lettering and stuff, and very capably. It was always for Owlbear, so it was a very good thing.
But we do like finding board games for her that are very much in that kind of story-based.
Yeah. And she loves it too. It's like she's very sort of eclectic in her wording of stuff, and it's just it's a really hilarious just to see where her brain works and comes up with different things for it all. And when it gets to the point of being able to actually do RPGs and stuff with her, I'm so looking forward to that time.
I can't wait for that too, because she's got a really clever mind for sequences and understanding patterns. And so I feel like she's going to be one of those role players that's so diligent, like with all of her stats, and manages to the players that like Browne. Our friend Rowan in the core high school group of his friends, he has everything mapped out really carefully, and he has everything.
Yeah, but it's all in his head.
But it is also all in his head too. So I can totally see her being that kind of gamer one day, and I can't wait for it. She's going to be fantastic.
She's already protective of her dice. So
she's so protective of her dice.
If there's dice in the game, it's like they're all brought right up next to her.
And then if it's your turn to play, like you have to remind her, Mac,
can I have the dice?
all 4 years old, already a dice hoarder. That's a wonderful sign. And I started my children. I have 3 children. They're now 14, 13, and 11, and they're real close together. And I started them off very early. It actually started with bedtime stories that became interactive, and they could kind of choose what happened to the people in the stories. Then we made our way to the table. But back then, I just had to take 3.5, and I had to take Pathfinder and things like that, and I had to water it down. But now there's so many options. Right there in Melbourne, Australia, is Justin Holliday, who makes Hero Kids RPG, which is geared towards children your niece's age. And also Amazing Tales is kind of a free-form RPG. And now there's dozens more. And Wizards of the Coast has just come out with the Young Adventurers guides. So all of those things are there available, which are tools I wish I had 10 years ago.
Although I think your methods are pretty cool, right? I think that's a really cool way of like getting kids to just start thinking about the idea that they can influence a story. And it's actually quite I'm gonna put on my extra clever cap. But it's also a way for you to teach them, I guess, that they can take ownership of themselves too, right?
Yes.
If everything that happens in our life is some kind of story, and we get to choose whether we want to be the hero or the victim or the villain even. So I think it's a really cool way to also instill in them a sense of resilience and of, hey, I don't like how this story is going. Okay, well, how would I change it?
Very much so. And that it's definitely has an empowering effect for all players, but especially children. And so, Jessica, I wanted to ask you, now, I know a lot of actors who started off as gamers, but you were an actor who came into gaming. Now, how do you feel like that was different for you?
Good question. I guess when you're an actor first, you're relying on the story that's being conveyed to you by the writer, and then the way that the director wants to translate that. So you've always got, your own take on something and your own spin on something, and it's quite, you're in an emotional place no matter whether you're doing a comedy or a drama or whatever kind of genre. You're always trying to live authentically in the emotions of the character, which is effectively you when you're in that particular story. And so I guess going into role-playing, having done that first as opposed to role-playing first and then going into acting, I found it really kind of interesting that instead of having a script to go by, it was sort of more like doing improvisation, but at the same time, you might not have a set of, you might not have dialogue in front of you, but you do have a character sheet that helps to determine the way something might work. And so I remember really early on in one of the campaigns we did, I decided I wanted to play a monk because I did Taekwondo as a teenager and as an early adult, and as a young adult, I should say. And I love martial arts. And so, after my Ranger and that campaign, finished, I went, no, I want to play monk next. This is going to be really great because then I can get into my Taekwondo head and it'll be fantastic. But at the time that we started playing, I said to, Andrew, no, my monk will always try to find a non-violent way to get through something before a violent way. And I remember we were on a path to find something. And I think it was some kind of worm, or wyvern or something on the path. Do you remember, Owlbear? No? There was some kind of creature on the path, and it was quite a tough creature. And the guy's like, all right, well, yeah, I guess, we're about to go into combat. Oh, yeah. And my character was like, no, we're going around. We're going around because this creature's done nothing to us, and we don't have to do anything to this creature. I was all up on my monk's high horse of, we go down the non-violent path first whenever we can, and we did. We circled all the way around this creature before we continued on. But then after a little while, I feel like I just got lazy with that kind of mentality, and my monk just turned into, all right, well, we're in a fight. I'm going to get my fists out. So it's kind of
I think it was the point when you realised you could actually jump high enough to hit flying things. That was probably the point where
that
you
was
realised
probably it. And the thing about D&D too is when you get really good at certain combat maneuvers, you get really just psyched to want to use them. And so I kind of the gamer in me kind of then went past the character intention I'd originally set for myself, because I just got so into the idea of, look at these flurry of blows, I'm so cool. Look at me do it again. Blah!
I think the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon coming out at the time was probably also a bad influence.
Oh yeah, quite possibly. So yeah, it's kind of interesting because I feel like the active part of me did influence the way I would have character interactions within a role-playing session. But then it kind of at times got overtaken by the gamer in me that was just like, oh, this is really cool and I want to do this. So it's very, I do think it is different in some respects, but I also think there's no right or wrong way to transition from one to the other or do both, because it's really cool to be able to be an actor and to play in a role-playing game and to have a different experience than what you might normally have on a set, because you really do get to just use your imagination and let it run, obviously within the confines of what your DM will allow you to do.
I mean, from the outsider's point of view on it all, seeing
actually, I want to know. Tell me how you felt knowing that I was an actor going into a role-playing game. Like, what was?
It just made you so you were more fearless, because it was just like you went in there. Like most people when they start up, D&D or anything, the role-playing side of it is probably the bit where it's like, do I put on the voice? Do I go and how much do I go and put through for it? You were just sort of like in there. It's just like, this is my character, this is who I am, this is where I'm embodying it. This is not, you weren't measuring it, it was more the fact of just like, how many do I have to roll for that? And do I have a stat for that? Sort of thing. And that was as far as that sort of, you had that sort of angle going into the role.
That's true, because normally at the table, the guys weren't very much into, I'm going to put on a voice or I'm going to, except for Andrew as our DM. I did like that he would, and to be fair, he's not putting on like big voices, but he would change his voice and he would change his mannerisms and he would change, the tone, like the rhythm of his voice to portray different characters. And to be honest, I think that's the thing that I also loved the most was the times where I got to interact with Andrew as my character, knowing that he wasn't being Andrew anymore. He was being whichever NPC we're encountering.
So Darryl, when Jessica sat down at the table, said, I've never played this before. What am I doing? I got the special dice with the dots in them. And and you've got you've got your mates from back in school all around the table, and they're like, okay, we're going to help her out. And all of a sudden she sits down and she's putting on voices, and she knows what the character's direction is, and she's all in her alignments, feelings, and things like that, right? So Darryl, what was you shared with us your impression that she was able to just jump right in and get right over that hurdle that gamers have of, do I really want to get into character, and how much into character should I get? Well, can you share with us what the guys thought when did they share with you what they thought about her first initial jumping into the game?
Oh my God, this makes me feel really vulnerable. I'm like, oh no. Say only nice things.
Only nice things. The guys I've known for ages, like they're all really top blokes, and it's just.
You sure Tristan didn't have like the
he would have been the one. He would have been the one out of all that would have been hesitant. But at the same time,
likes things to be just so, and there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah, but at the time that this was all going on with it, like we've had our group had exploded out at different times with extra people and that. And, while we were all in university and college sort of thing from it, Tristan had moved out and had different housemates and things. So the gaming group had, where we started off pretty much primarily just at Andrew's place, sitting around the dining room table there. As we got older and moved out and went to wherever else we were from it, Tristan's place was the first place where we sort of, he had a larger sort of share house sort of thing, and it gave us more options to be able to sort of come in, game as long as we needed to, and as for as often as we wanted, and all that sort of stuff. So that was where we probably became a little more obsessive with a lot of role playing and tabletop gaming.
Well, you had like a dedicated space that felt like it was not just someone else's house. It felt like this is where we go to do the thing.
Yeah. So his two housemates that were there as well got into that whole side of things as well. So and one of them was very much from a sort of like a television acting. He didn't do so much acting, but he had enough of that sort of thing with it also. Yeah.
I was actually going to say, it really wouldn't surprise me to know just how much Tristan may or may not have hesitated having me join the table based on the stories you guys told me about other Stephen's clumsiness and the things that he did.
Yeah. He's into all sorts of things. So
did he trash a map or character sheets or something at one point? Like I remember something being knocked or spilled that you guys told me about. Yeah.
It was like we had other people. The group had expanded out and stuff from it. So we had a very large, sort of diverse difference of styles of role playing and everything. By the point that, we experienced a lot of different sort of ideas and things with it before Jess had come on.
And to be fair, just before the campaign started, you guys were playing Blood Bowl, and I was trying to play Blood Bowl, and I was doing terribly. There's those rolls in Blood Bowl where you have 2 dice and you get to choose the better one. And I'd be playing against Steve, and I'd roll die, and I'd go, okay, so this one's 1 die my choice instead of 2 dice my choice. And he'd be like, yes, because it was 1 die. And of course, whatever that says goes. It's not your choice. Yeah. He's clearly thinking that.
What it is.
But I'm trying to keep track of things because I'm getting massively confused. So I can understand potential hesitation and say, and now you want to bring her to a game where there's a sheet that actually has a whole bunch of numbers and things on it that she has to keep track of. Can she? And not that I'm stupid or anything, but it's all learning new rule sets and what you can and can't do type thing.
Yeah. But no, they were all very much sort of open to the side of things at all, and it's continued on long past that point out of it. The last in more recent times we haven't got to both get out to the table at the same time for a lot of it. But when we have been out, it's always still good. And we've done a couple of little online things with it, and different games with other people. We've been on holidays and that sort of thing, which has always helped. But no, it's never been a problem out of, seeing Jeff sort of, pick up something new and run with it and just sort of, have the fun of role playing as it goes. So, yeah.
Our dog is so upset right now because I think he wants to have a cuddle with me. He can't because there's a microphone between us. He just keeps giving me the biggest sad
Big sad eyes. And just sort of,
Stormy. Look, come up here. Come on. Lean over and I'll give you a pat. How about that? Come on.
You big sucky dog. Anyway.
Now, have you guys continued with 3.5 or have you moved on to 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons now?
We've got 5th. We skipped completely over 4. That
I feel like Andrew tried it or something, or he got the
4.
I think from, and my memory could be really wrong here, but I feel like there was a beta test or something that was happening just before 4 came out, and there was a downloadable PDF you could get of.
No, you're thinking of 5, and that was what I remember.
No, because I remember you guys complaining that it felt too much then, like it was turning into just a miniatures game as opposed to
maybe it was
actual role playing. Because Andrew was going through it and he shared the PDF with us, and I just remember the general consensus being, oh no, we don't want to play a miniatures game necessarily. Like, because we've
got miniatures games to play miniatures games.
And we would use and we would use maps and things like that. But yeah, the other games that you guys would play, with miniatures were the miniatures games. The D&D to us was
more freeform.
Yeah. And I think having the constraints of what 4 did was just not quite, what you guys enjoyed playing. And I could say, being new to it, I could understand why you were all so.
Well, it's also that we were just so invested with 3.5 as well. Like, we had bought all the stuff. We knew all the materials.
You could build a cubby house with those books.
Oh, yeah.
You have so many books that you could just staple them together.
Yeah.
And be like, this is our fort of 3.5.
Yeah.
Marvel at it.
But no, it was like, we were invested enough in 3.5 that was the sort of became through it. So we sort of skipped over 4. I did do a lot of other people who did play 4, but that was the thing. And then when 5 went into that early trial out sort of materials where they got people to trial different rule sets and everything, and they had the Borderland Keep. I'm now mentally blocking the name of the classic module. I should know off by the top of my head. But there's the Keep on the Borderlands.
Yes.
Right, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
And they had that variation of it that went through it. Now, that was my sort of point where I went, I could tip my toe into the water of DMing and see how that goes with it, and watch them all promptly die at the hands of the Medusa.
Oh my god, I remember that.
Yeah, that was shocking. That very first.
I think I played in that game.
You did. It was very much a.
I remember now.
That very first sort of packet that came out of it had a lot more of that. First and second edition mentality of like, here's the save or die. So it's just like, which is one aspect that I appreciate, but at the same time it's like, I don't want that.
So Darryl, are you saying that your first time dungeon mastering ended in a TPK, a total party kill?
It wasn't quite TPK. One person ran away.
Hang on a minute, was that Tristan?
I can't remember who it was now.
It was Tristan or Rowan.
One of them. I can't remember. Somebody did think of it, but the whole point was there was a prisoner that was sort of locked up with it all. And,
That's right.
There's no way I can sort of see to get them out of it.
It was like a rescue mission, and then we all just.
No, you just sort of stumbled upon it. She was just.
Oh no, that's right.
Yeah.
We thought there was something that we needed to do, and then we saw her, and then we all just kind of.
Yeah, because there were so many entrances into that area, it was like I couldn't quite prepare to where they were going to go in for it or anything.
I remember. Yeah, we kind of
so you just
ended up taking an inadvertent shortcut.
Yeah.
Like
there was 10 entrances or so, and they went, "Let's go for this one." I went, "Okay," and they went past a couple of goblin guards or whatever it was, and took them out, and then there's this prisoner with their face covered, going, "Oh, can you help me? Can you help me out?" And they opened it, and she went, blah, and they died.
The wonderful thing about both role playing and being, an actor in film and TV is there are certain moments that really bring you back the emotion that you felt at the time that you did the thing. And I'm just having like this massive wave of disappointment flood back into me, remembering
This is why I don't see
screwed up that story. Oh my God, we screwed that so bad.
I still have aspirations of DMing again, but it's not high on my list of it all, and especially when I know so many people who are good at it, far better suited to it, that I'm sort of like, maybe I'll just sort of write up my characters and have them be my story. And
you know what, too? Like, you feel spoiled when you have a really good DM, and I think that colours you when it comes to you as a player going, do I want to transition into something like DMing? I remember, and this would have been when I was maybe 16. So you've just actually triggered a memory in me that has made me go, okay, well, technically the first time I did play D&D was with you guys, but technically the first time I ever role played properly was when a group of people, friends I knew that lived near me, wanted to play Vampire the Masquerade. And I had the books from my one of my mum's terrible choices in partners. And it's fine. There's only been 2 of them. And I had Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf. And I really love Vampire the Masquerade for its artwork and stuff. And my friend said to me, oh, do you want to run a game for us? Because we'd love to see how it goes. And I had no aspirations to run a game, but I went, okay, yeah, sure, let's see what happens. And I kind of made it up as I went, because I, at the time, didn't really want to do it, so I didn't want to plan anything, which is horrible. I should have planned some sort of story. I think I kind of came up with something on the fly that worked. But I remember as time went on throughout that game, I just kept getting more and more frustrated with the decisions that they were making. And by the end of the game, they were like, oh my God, that was really fun. Yeah, we had such a good time. But I was sitting there thinking to myself, that was horrible. I had no control over what they were doing. I don't like this sensation. I don't think I want to run any more games. So
I feel like you're wandering into the plot of games too.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Why won't they do the thing
Why won't they do the things that I want them to do? I have this memory of them trying to attack 2 people while one of them was by a car, and the way that they did it, I described it as though they were punching one guy with their left hand and kicking one guy with their right leg, like there was some sort of weird X shape, which they thought was really cool. But at the time I was like, that's so dumb. Oh my God, that just sounds so stupid and dumb. Why would you allow them to do something like that? So I have a feeling like I might not, and it could have been me as a teenager. I don't know if I'm the kind of person that I think should DM, because I think trying to wrangle a bunch of things is a bit much, but I do enjoy it as a player. And I think you did a good job as DM. We just really sucked as players for you.
Well,
go back.
In all fairness, a Medusa-like trap is really hard to walk away from.
Yeah. It wasn't what I expected in the module, that's for certain.
and that's kind of the problem when you're running a book mission, is you don't know. You can read through it, but sometimes you get surprised by what's around the corner, because like you said, you couldn't prepare for the 20 different entrances. That was probably the Caves of Chaos, and it's like they're called the Caves of Chaos. I mean, there's so much stuff going on. And that's amazing. Now, I also have played Vampire the Masquerade back in high school. And I was a big fan of a television series that probably nobody remembers. It was called Nick Knight. And it was Knight spelt with a K. And it was about...
Of course it was.
Of course, right? And it was about a cop who was a vampire. And he wants to... It's bringing some memories back, right?
I've seen this.
Yeah, he's trying to regain his humanity. And this is kind of pre-Vampire the Masquerade. So I said, okay, I'll run Vampire the Masquerade for some buddies. And I was like, okay, you're all going to be these vampires, and you're going to try and be heroes. You're going to try to hold your man. An hour in, they're just killing people. They're killing other vampires. they're full on murder hoboing as vampires. And, I was like, I got better at the World of Darkness, but yes, that was my first encounter with Vampire the Masquerade. Was I thought we were going to have this great episode of Nick Knight. And instead it's Murder Hobos Vampire Edition.
And you know what? I think that like teenage boys, in particular, this is going to sound terrible because this is going to sound super assumptive, but I just think, when you think about the hormones that run around you at those ages, right? Of course, you're going to want to go and smack things around. And that's probably why D&D is probably better for that kind of age group in some respect. If you don't want to try and play a Vampire the Masquerade game with some seriousness and then some heroics as opposed to just like, let's just kill things.
Kick in the door, smoke the monster, grab the treasure.
But I think also, I think about the amount of, teenage girls we could have saved by introducing them to Vampire the Masquerade instead of Twilight. I think they might have had a better time playing Vampire.
I don't know, like I'm going back to the whole Nick Knight thing over, like having seen some of those sort of 80s vampire things, I remember some of that stuff being so much better than what it actually is. Like,
of course.
Well, no, but I just sort of mean, it's like you go, oh, it could have been as great as this. It's like, that wasn't a good thing to set the bar at and give it. That you can is really good. Like, let's just go to the bit more with Nick Knight. That like Kindred Be Embraced was another one that was shortly followed over. I remember thinking that was the best thing ever, and the what was the clan?
I don't remember.
It was the monstrous sort of clan. Started with D.
The Nosferatu.
Was it the Nosferatu? Was it? For some reason, I had in my head it's a D-stone one. But yeah, so it was like, that was the cool looking ones. You're like, oh, you want to be them, but then you don't want to be them because then you can't go out. And you're like, oh, we'll be the, whatever it is from it. And yeah, we toyed around. Like, I never actually got to play sort of Vampire the Masquerade, but I toyed around with the idea of it at times.
Darryl, for my listeners who aren't familiar with your amazing Twitter commentaries, how is it that you became the tabletop Owlbear? What's the story behind that name anyway?
So basically, it's like Highlander. There can be only one. So he had to go out and find the original tabletop Owlbear and slaughter him, and then pluck the feathers to like put into his own body like a weird kind of hair transplant situation. And that's how it happened, really.
You're terrifying me reading it. That's great.
I was about to say something about killing a platypus so you can take the meat from it, but that's even worse. Weird. That's horrible because I don't want to think about
platypus bear is a whole other thing.
So wonderful. He's so cute.
No, so it's it basically started off as it was just going to be a single day joke of all things. It was the tabletop the show with Will Wheaton was going along happily, and they decided to do after the first season into the second season, they announced having International Tabletop Day, which sort of coincided with the launch of the program and year on.
So it was the very first International Tabletop Day.
So first International Tabletop Day, and it was sort of like one of the episodes that just sort of had a heartfelt bit to me was the one that's about what's a Waterdeep, because Waterdeep being it's an amazing game in of itself, but it was all set within Faerun, and it was kind of I love that sort of stuff out of it a little bit. Well, I never really got to play in Faerun as a role player until after the fact. I'd read a lot of the books and everything that have been novelizations and stuff that had come out from it all, and I was a massive fan of the Baldur's Gate series and everything. Minsk and Boo forever, like ride or die for Minsk or Boo. So Lords of Waterdeep comes out. That episode's amazing, and it keeps pushing through Owlbears, and Owlbears, like from Dot, there was two monsters that always just spoke to me through D&D. One of them is the Owlbear, the other one is the Flump. It's like, oh, I'm here for the underdogs, guys. So I'm sitting there like, the first tabletop game's coming around, I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if while everyone's all gaming and everything from it all, what if I just cosplayed an Owlbear and, decided just to, play these games throughout the day, and we could take some silly video and it'll be a laugh. Because every tabletop day, we've had but we've just opened up our house so that everybody, all of our friends and stuff.
What's the maximum amount of guests we've had in here on a tabletop day?
At one time, I think we clocked in over 30.
Yeah.
And then, but like for the entire day,
like
it was
at any one moment, there were, like at one particular moment that day, there was at least more than 30 people in the house on 8 or 9 different tables, and then, but then I think like in total, because people come and go, it would have been over 40.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a big, it was big days out of it all. So yeah, so for a joke,
loud.
Oh yeah, it gets loud. So for a joke, I went down and I went, all right, well, I could put together this little costume out of it all, but what would I need to do?
And you told me, and I'm going, okay, like what are you thinking about for this costume?
Yeah, money's tight, but can I go and hire a suit, like an animal suit thing from the costume place, and buy an owl rubber mask, and I'll just do this for the day. And it's like, okay, honey, you do you.
I do remember saying to you, like, I fully support you wanting to do this, but you do realise that you're going to get really sweaty very fast.
Yeah, well, it was awesome.
A lion.
Yeah, it was a lion suit. So
it's just kind of like a furry, like baggy bodysuit thing. Yeah. And it had a tail?
Yeah, it had a tail, so I had to tuck that into the pants and the thing. Because elephants don't have a tail like that. It's not on. So here's me. It's what's here is, it would have been sort of late autumn, fall, so getting in towards winter and that. It's still reasonably warm.
But also the house had
we had all these people in here, so the heat was right up as it was anyway. And I'm sitting wearing a rubber mask, which then added more to the heat. With this, because that was the only way you could get an owl one out of it.
Which you painted, I think.
Yeah, I painted to match the colour of the.
You bought it and you wanted it to, you didn't want it to look completely out of place with the body of the lion suit.
Yeah, so it's like the going to go and get the suit itself was great, because like going in there, it's like, I would like to try on that animal thing. It's like, what do you want? I'm like, whatever one fits, because I'm 6'3", reasonably built sort of thing. And it's just sort of like, all right, trying to find anything that actually just fit me in the costume store was hilarious. So it basically came down to, there was one option, that was it. This was this lion that was in a 2-piece thing, and they had a bear, and it was like, oh yeah, this will be fine, it'll be great. I put the thing on, I couldn't actually stand up. It's like the shoulders to feet part of it was so constrained that I was sort of like, and I managed to get like some sort of hunchback thing. That one's not going to work. Let's take that off and get the other one. So the lion one, I used a little bit of my model paints and stuff, paint up the mask.
You skipped over the part where I'm pretty sure that
and they said,
you want the head.
But they said, I said, is there any chance I can hide this without the head? Will that save me anything? They're like, you want it without the head? And I'm like, trying to explain them to it, was like, like, do I go into the whole thing of like trying to explain what an owlbear is to this clearly confused younger lady in the store, and that I'm sort of like, no, I'm just sort of going, look, it's kind of like, how you have centaurs, you have a half creature, half creature. I've got the head for another animal, I'm putting up this. They're like, okay, like, I've saved money, awesome. So I come back home, happy
so proud and so excited, and I was so like happy and nervous for you at the same time.
So all this is sort of very much like all of the last couple of days leading up to tabletop day. I sit there and I'm painting this, the mask and stuff with my bottle paints and stuff, just to, watching over it to give it at least a matching sort of thing to it, dark color to match up with it. I'm doing this on the day of the thing, which is when I'm sort of like, that was the point where I could actually pick up the suit and, then go, oh, hang on a minute, this doesn't match. So it's like early morning on that one, and fixing this up while we're setting up tables all through the house and everything, because we had tables I borrowed from work and chairs I borrowed from work, which is like taking like 3 car trips or whatever to bring all this stuff back to our house to go and fit everything in for the weekend. And so, we've done all this. Everything's all set up. It's all good to go. We get a bit of the way into the thing, and I've sort of decided, we'll just, we've got the whole party's, everything's going. I've gone off to the bedroom, got myself changed, walked out into the thing, and just sort of got, had this massive laugh with everyone as we're going around with it. So we proceeded to take photos with different games, and
because I was recording footage too from
you were.
Because I wanted to make a vlog about the day, because technically, being ahead of the US, we were we were in the first kind of group of time zones that got to actually celebrate International Tabletop Day. And
yeah, well, New Zealand's the only one before us. So, so we're doing all this stuff. We're taking up photos and everything, and we're throwing everything up on the Twitter on this account that I made up for it, thinking, this will be this one day, that'll be it. It'll be great. And so I'm sitting there, we're taking a few photos, and I'm putting the thing in my phone's, I've not done much with Twitter at this stage. I've done a little bit of it, but it'll be fine. So I throw up the things, and I'm tagging the, Tabletop Day and Will into the things.
And you're tagging the designers, I think, as well, of the games.
Yeah, tagging the designers of the games we're playing and everything with it. And I'm partway through a game with Lords of Waterdeep. Like, we're taking the photos and everything from it, and at times I've had to take off the head because I didn't want to die. And we sit there and we're playing through the game, and my phone is just like just moving itself around the table, and I'm like, what the hell is going on with this? Not knowing the fact that, if you leave notifications on Twitter and something blows up, it just keeps moving. And so here's my little timeline just going, oh my God, retweeting stuff up from it all, and just, all these silly photos of being with the, domesticating Owlbear card and holding that up, and doing a little quick video of, we had TikTok Lumberjack, and so I'm sitting there blindly trying to hit the little tree with the axe.
Oh my God, I remember that.
I can't see.
You can't see, and you just kind of try to
do I tap the thing and see how it goes? It's like everything that you should be able to do about that game, I couldn't do. And so that was great. Just all this little footage and stuff we took, and videos and everything. We're sticking little bits and pieces up on there, and I'm writing back to some people with that as I go throughout the day. And it's just a great laugh. We wrap here at about 3 a.m. or something stupid.
Tabletop Day always goes really late.
Yeah. The last people sort of leave, and we're laying down everything from it, and I'm sort of sitting there going, just buzzing, on a massive high from the whole day, just because I love tabletop gaming.
It's your favourite day of the year.
Exactly. And I'm sitting there just going through the phone and that, and just the amount of people that got in behind it, and there's just all this positivity and all this wonderful excitement and everything. There's people who are guests on Tabletop writing back to it all, and different designers, they're sharing stuff, and it's all going around from it. And it was at that point I realized how much of a community there actually is within sort of the, between RPGs and tabletop gaming and everything, and how much of that all comes together, and how much of an interwoven group where so many industries aren't, they're very competitive and everything from it, where with tabletop and RPG and everything, it's competitive, but there's this sort of kinship and an embrace between all of it that doesn't seem to exist really within most other industries. And so you've got all everyone else. I guess so many of them are just like, some of these publication companies and everything are like 2 or 3 people. And that's all there is. This is like the whole company is like these couple of people. And so they make friends and they've got through for it. And so essentially the companies are friends with each other as well. And so you sort of sit there and go, oh, hang on a minute, this is actually just this wonderful thing from it. And all the fans of the show and that are all writing up from it. And it just kept going. And of course, then it becomes, because of the time zone and everything, it's now popped into Tabletop Day for everyone else. And so I'm sitting there going around the house, just sitting around the house, and they did a live stream on there, and I'm writing stuff from, as the Owlbear and everything from it. And it just becomes this persona. But it's like I took a little bit of as I was writing around with it originally, but then it just sort of kept going. And so I'm like joking around with people, and we're doing all the little bits from it all, and someone's making some comment about something they've seen in the background of it, and then I'm looking across going, well, I've still got the suit. And so I'm like, I've got it on hire for a couple of days, still. And I'm like, oh, well, what the hell? So I've like thrown it on. I've then put on a Hawaiian shirt on over the top of it, which is kind of my usual dress sort of thing out of all of it. But I'm really going to own it now. And it's just like, oh, yeah, just chilling back. And so I was taking silly little photos of just like, cocktail, watching back with everyone else, and, showing up different little things from it. And it just sort of continually spiraled. And then it just kept going. Like, people just kept writing to me and like tagging on different things they were doing the next day or the next weekend. And I'm like, and I had my own Twitter and everything from it. And I just sort of went, no, that one's not as interesting anymore. Just ditch my own thing from it. And like, I'll just live out this character, and which was essentially me anyway. So, it became this whole way of being able to just reach out connect with this huge positive community and then be able to throw my own stuff into it. So that was where it all started, and then just sort of continually snowballed with that sort of positivity, me making up my silly little artwork and putting that up onto Twitter as well. So I'd make up little things inspired by the different board games as they came out on tabletop, and so you're just seeing how many places you can put an Owlbear into whatever game you've got from it, and spiraling more and more stuff from there. So there's probably about 20, 30 different images I think I've got now on different board games where that were on tabletop that have just had their own Owlbear inserted into it in one way or another. So from that it's just led on to such a weird ride of different events that I could not, it's hard to even work out where it actually even started and ended now. It's, I finally got to do the dream of going across to Gen Con, which was such a big, I've read so much stuff through Knights of the Dim Table comic and Dragon magazine and all these sorts of things about seeing all these places in the States. And by weird chance, I entered in this little competition bit through Calliope Games and won 2 tickets to go to Gen Con. And I'm sort of
I'd like to point out how funny it is.
Yeah.
Because imagine getting a chance to win 2 tickets to Gen Con. That's pretty cool. But also then, for us being in Australia, it was just kind of like,
well, how did we get there?
This doesn't become an easy exercise.
No.
The tickets are awesome, but then how do we do the thing?
Yeah.
And I remember you turning to me at one point and saying, oh, look, they've said, because of where we live and how far it is, I could get board games instead, and I think I might just do that. And I remember kind of sitting you down and saying, hang on a second, you've gaming has been such an important part of your life.
Mm.
It has solidified and connected you with your friendship group over the years. I mean, how many people can honestly say that they are still super close and hang out every single week with their best friends from high school? I don't know personally many people that say that. And I had to kind of say to you, because you were sitting there going, oh, yeah, well, we won these tickets, but we can't go. And I remember saying...
We were also planning to go to the US finally for the first time the year following, which was the sort of the pitch to it. It was sort of like, oh, we were doing that for that year. We were saving up for that.
No, that had already happened.
No.
Because we had seen my mum. No, because I was...
Yeah, I know, but we'd done the first trip to the US, but to go and do it,
yeah.
It was the second trip to go and do from it. We were planning to go.
But I remember you saying we can't, and then I said to you...
Because it was going for your mum's birthday, and that was the whole reason we were going to go the next year.
Ah, that's right.
Yeah.
But I had to say to you, well, why not?
Yeah. So we ended up going, all right, well... And then it all just sort of fell into place. We had friends here who were part of different... group. There's quite a number of Aussies that end up going across over to Gen Con. I had no idea of that until that moment. We knew, we had so many sort of internet friends and things as we've got across from it, through this account and through other people we knew and that. And we'd had PAX here for the first, I think it was 2 years. I think it had
been 2 years.
By that point.
Yeah.
And so we made quite a few connections through from that as well. And I sort of put out that, look, I've won these. I don't have accommodation and, I can figure out flights and that with it all, but I don't know where I have to stay or anything from it. And I got reached out to by a lovely friend, Mark at Campaign Coins, and he sort of went, look, I can hook you up with some accommodation if you're happy to share. And I'm like, oh, yeah, all right. And then... actually, no, I was telling you, back. I won 1 ticket. That was the whole. Did I win 1 ticket or 2 tickets? Oh God, I can't remember now. But yeah, for some reason out of it all, and we had to try and work out some way to go and get you across to work.
No, I think it was 1 because I said I'd be happy to go over, but then obviously I wouldn't be able to do the thing.
Yeah. And we undenied about
No. We did. I think we did talk about buying a ticket because it wasn't sold out that year.
Yeah.
But then I remembered because I'd made friends with Ben from Sirenscape when Sirenscape was just sort of starting, and he came to the very first PAX, and we developed a wonderfully nerdy friendship there. I reached out to him and I said to him, that's right, I remember now because he had a regular ticket and I had an exhibitor pass. I said, do you need anyone to come and help you out with Sirenscape? And he went, yeah, I'd love to have you on the booth. That'd be fantastic.
Because this was the first or second year that I think it was the second year.
I think it was the second year, yeah.
And so he's sort of like, oh, yeah, I've got some, someone I know that I can go and get help with and everything. So, we had then another avenue to go through so we could both get over there. We both had somewhere to stay. We both had a way to go. I felt far less guilty about doing the whole thing. So, right back to Calliope going, we're going to go and we'll do that. And so, got to meet all of those people there and they've become good friends since that point. But the amount of friends I made through that trip, or solidified friendships more with it all. Like Andrew Hackard at Steve Jackson Games, like I got to meet him at PAX just before that trip.
That was the year before. I remember. Oh
so we met him and then we got to go over there and see him all over again, and sort of that became like even more of a staging point for it. We got to meet all the guys from Zombie Orpheus who do all the gamers materials, and they became like immediate friends, almost family.
Their family
feel to everyone we met through from there. It was all the guys that Chris and Nicole we met from Green Ronin Games. We met them there at that one, and through a weird set of events that was the start of our friendship properly through from those ones. We just kept bumping into them at random points, and it was sort of every time we would sort of turn around,
like
the airport, on the flight. Everywhere we went, we just kept bumping into them. It's just like the universe seems to be forcing us together over and over and over again, like stuck in lines of security and everything.
We were at LAX, and we saw Chris like I think pondering about whether he was going to get some food or not. And just as we walked past him, I whispered really loudly, "Go home! Stop following us!" And then as we're walking away, thinking, God, I hope he gets that as a humorous thing, because
they do.
They did.
But it was just that we got so many friendships out of it, and then I got to know quite a few of the people from Geek and Sundry as I'd gone along with it. Again, part of this sort of evolving persona, the tabletop Owlbear moved from not only Twitter into Twitch as that became the thing with them. And I became a mod for Geek and Sundry and did a lot of the sort of things from it. I've met Norma and Becca Scott were doing board games and stuff on their part of it all, and then into RPGs as well. And of course, Ivan's company, who does he's got sort of undead material and everything with it. And now he's developed kids on bikes and now kids on brooms, and so he was very much into that sort of like creating RPGs that were open and available to younger people, and that, which is something anything that brings more people into it all and brings them to big happy family, I'm banging for. They became good friends out of that. We took that trip as we ended up back in LA, and then ended up on the game the game while Becca was.
That's right.
She was off being, because Becca was off being married at the time. And so she was off from there, and so we filled in as hosts from that, and then we kept sort of coming back every time we swung past there. It was like, do you want to be on? Okay. So we'll sort of fill in a bit from there, and it's just this wonderful snowball effect. And between that and then ending up meeting up with all the Critical Role guys, and there's a brief moment in the second or third trip out of all of it, the one where Matt was guest of honor for Gen Con that year, and he recorded some stuff for Sirenscape, because since this point, we're like, every time we've gone back, we've worked with Sirenscape to sort of help them out with it all. So instead of being just sort of pottering around on my own, I'm actually help. And Matt recorded some stuff for us for Sirenscape, doing a few of his different characters and stuff into it all. But the weirdest point out of it all, that like all the exhibitors could go into the exhibit hall, the guest of honor couldn't outside of ours. And it was just sort of like, so we got a security guard like blocking Matt from going into the exhibit hall after it while we're trying to get him to record things. And we're just sort of like, well, how in the world did we go and get around this? And I'm like, and so like he's out the front of the door and he's on the phone with Ben, and Ben's sitting there going, well, how do we do this? And I'm going, like, I've got an idea. Hang on a sec. I've run off to the hall where Matt's at, and we're like, my theory was we'll just swap badges while no one's sort of looking at it all, but he'll have one that just says sensitivity, he can walk on in, no worries and everything like that. In my mind, it's just going to be really hilarious me walking around with Matt's badge on, just sort of going, hey, go get this from it. As it turns out, as I'm almost at the door, all of a sudden there's Matt coming running back the other direction towards me. I'm like, what happened? He's gone, stuck past the guard where he came from. I've gone, that's very you, Matt. So we got in, did the whole bit, and we're all good and that. But yeah, we've got to hang out with them in LA for a little bit. And we have a standing agreement that every time we come around and get through, we stock them up with a couple of packs of Tim Tams, and always good.
It's such an incredible story. And Jessica, what was it that you were thinking when here you are being supportive of him being goofy on International Tabletop Day, and then it turns into an internet sensation and then snowballs into all this? Like, it has to be surreal. How are you feeling about it?
I don't even know if I'd call it necessarily surreal because I'm in entertainment, so I've seen firsthand and I've experienced firsthand what it's like when you're someone or when you're a part of something that brings people together. You know, when you're on stage and you're doing a play, you're doing you're doing the same play every single night, but every single night is different because of the people that are in the room and the energy that it feeds you. So the experience always changes, but you're always very intimately aware of just how much you're influencing the people that are watching you. And so I felt when it started as like this, I'm going to do something real silly, I was like, yeah, go for it, be silly, like have fun. I want you to have fun. This is going to be a really special day for you because I know how much it's going to mean to you to have so many people under our roof having a fantastic time and doing the things that you love. And then as it gained popularity, I do remember very briefly going, you have more followers on Twitter than I do? Like, what? but like, for a very brief moment, because there is a part of you with the business side of things in the entertainment industry that's like, God, I just want to extend my reach so that people know who I am. But I very quickly got over that because it really didn't matter. And I was just so happy that he was making other people, happy and having a good time. And so then when the opportunity came to go to Gen Con, I mean, I have a massive spirit of adventure. There was no way I was going to let him give up just because we happen to live tens of thousands of kilometers away.
Almost literally halfway around the world.
Yeah, almost halfway around the world. And so when we went and things continued to snowball and snowball and snowball and snowball, I just became happier and happier and happier because the person that I know and love was finally revealing a part of themselves to the world in a way that was causing other people to see the person that I love, if that makes any sense. Yes. I think Darryl's not a performer. He's not a massive extrovert. He's not a person that wants to be on display necessarily. And so to be able to put yourself out there like that at all is quite extraordinary and brave and requires you to be vulnerable, and that's incredibly courageous to do. But then to have confidence and faith in the thing that you're portraying, that in turn you can see the influence that you're having on a community, a very big community of people.
That was the thing, though. I didn't see any of it. Like, I was so caught up in the moment.
But I saw that, though.
I was so caught up in the moment, I didn't see any of it.
No, and if anything, it was really touching because it was almost like being the Owlbear has given you permission to be more of yourself in public spaces without being apologetic for who you are, without being self-conscious and, I could go to this thing, or I could say this, or I could go and do that activity over there, but, I don't want to get in the way, and I don't want to do this or that or the other. When we were at Geek and Sundry that one year, I remember this particular trip, they were doing a late night Twitch party where they were dancing and And you turned to me at one point because you still had the Owlbear gloves and mask in your bag. And you said, would it be really funny if I walked through the door at the back of the set, which would put him on camera, and, you know, danced around a little bit and then disappeared again. I'm like, go for it. You know, why not?
That question was more directed to the showrunner.
Well, yeah, but I remember you kind of also directing it towards me in the sense of, you know, oh, would it be really silly? Would I be humiliating myself? Or would it be dumb? And then you did it and you came back and you were really giddy. I remember you were just like, oh, that was really fun. And then like, you did it 2 more times after that. The best one being when they were dancing around very somberly to Careless Whisper, and you grabbed a broom and pretended to play.
That was Zach.
And you pretended to play
the sax part
with the broom with the Owlbear mask and the gloves on.
Yeah. So playing what's the Just Dance thing?
Yeah, Just Dance.
Careless Whispers, and there's me and, you know, Owlbear mask and little hands and, you know, whatever I was wearing at the time, but which I think was the Owlbear jumper that Chris Browne told me. But yeah, like that one, it just seeing this broom just mocking out doing the saxophone bit, and, or, you know, trying to do the best sexy saxophone guy that became out of the videos and everything.
So I think as the years have gone on, it's been something that I've continued to try and encourage where possible too, because, you know, when you're just, I don't want to say just Darryl because that makes it sound like you're less than, but when you're being Darryl, you still walk around with that kind of sense of not wanting to take up space as a person that doesn't want to.
I don't like being the center of attention.
Yeah. But also like it's a confidence thing. But I think when you're in your Owlbear shoes or your Owlbear mask, so to speak, you know, you're putting yourself out there, and it gives you more confidence to be assured in who you are as a person. And I mean, I have to tell this story, and please take over because I would love for you to tell this story. One year I decided to undertake a very expensive task, which was, I know that Darryl's been a massive, massive, massive fan of Billy Connolly for as long as I can remember us being together. And as a kid, you know, he's told me that, you know, the things he used to listen to and watch. And one year Billy was doing his farewell tour, I think, to us, you know, to different places around the world, and he was coming to Australia, and it was not cheap. But I remember going, I don't want him to have always thought, wouldn't it have been great to have seen him on stage? And I've missed out, and now I never will. So I surprised him with tickets for his birthday, and he got very emotional, which was like just exactly what I planned. But we went to the show, and we had a really fantastic time. And as the show ended, I said to Darryl, I wonder if we can catch him at the stage door, because, you know, obviously, you know, he has been well for a number of years. I don't think he's going to be the kind of star that's going to rush through the stage door as soon as the show finishes, and then you miss the chance to potentially stop them and say hi. And so I'm like, no, come on, let's just go to the stage door. And so we went to the stage door and we waited around for quite a while, and finally, but we were kind of positioned perfectly too. We were literally right in front of the door. I think we kind of technically stepped in place of where some other people had been and then had given up. And
it's not like there was a line.
There wasn't a line, no. There was a very, very small amount of people there. And he walks through the doors, and we are the first people he sees. And he greets us like we're friends, which is just...
Well, it's just him too.
I know, but it was just so wonderfully touching for someone of his, you know, his talent and his extraordinary abilities and years of doing what he does, to just see 2 complete strangers and be like, hey, these are my friends. He kissed me on my cheek, and I remember just kind of being like a stunned fish after that, going like, oh my God, Billy Connolly kissed me on my cheek. Do I ever wash my face again? I don't know. Maybe like, am I going to become funny by osmosis? That would be really cool. Oh. But he turns to Darryl and he says to him, what's that on your shirt?
So I've got this one jumper that's kind of like it's like a sports team logo sort of thing. There's tabletop Owlbear. So there's like one of the ones that someone created at some stage in the past. And yeah,
You were wearing it.
I was wearing it at the time. We sort of like, I looked down, realized what I'm wearing, and like, and I've got, all right. So here I am all of a sudden explaining what an owlbear is to Billy Connolly. So like Dungeons and Dragons, there's this creature thing, is like half of an owl, body of a bear, and they made up this thing, and like they made a sports style part from it all, and I kind of taken over this sort of personality thing out of all of it, and this is what I'm doing, and I'm sort of like half rambling and trying to explain as
because you're talking to one of your biggest heroes of all time.
Yeah, exactly. I was there, like, and Billy sort of go, okay, this is odd. And he's sort of like, that's interesting, that's good. And
but he genuinely
sort of shook my hand in that.
He kind of was like,
but at the same time,
it was almost like he was looking at Darryl like he was wearing some kind of punk rock thing. Like, like that's cool. Sure.
So he shakes my hand, he sort of moves on to the next person. I'm sort of on cloud nine, and so we're walking away.
And he signed your book too.
Oh, sorry,
he signed the gig book.
Yeah. So we're doing all this, and we're walking away, and I'm sort of cloud nine, and all of a sudden I'm sitting going, I just explained Owlbears to Billy Connolly. What the world is my life? It's sort of like, just sort of.
And the thing is, that would have never have happened if you hadn't have done all of that Owlbear stuff, because you probably wouldn't have bought that jumper or a lot of the Owlbear shirts that you have if it hadn't been for the time that you invested in creating the Owlbear persona and the Twitter account and everything else that's followed from it.
It was just weird.
Not weird, awesome.
It was awesome, but there's no doubt about that. But it's just sort of this strange thing of just like, he's this great, amazing to me legend, and I'm sitting there taking the time to explain what an owlbear is.
What is your advice for those families and for those folks out there that are trying to get that to come together?
It's a good question. So I mean, like with my side of it, like if I take it to my own parents out of all of it, I can barely get them to even play just even a board game or anything. They don't have that interest as much as I've tried to push through for it. I've got a few card games for my niece, like a very simple one that's just called Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza, and my dad can't even seem to sort of wrap me around the idea of that one, where my 4-year-old niece is just completely grokking him on it. But as far as sort of the role play side of it all, I think the first step out of all of it is ultimately just getting that openness with them. And I mean, any parent that's out there and is going that step to look up these materials online and everything, they've already taken like the biggest leap out of that in itself. Like that's just amazing that they're making that reach for it. So to any parents that are doing that, I've got all the respect for you entirely. I guess the next sort of point to it though really is just trying to find the right sort of ground that you want to walk on with each of them. I mean, I've said with board games and that we're in this sort of golden age with board games and RPGs and everything at the moment, where if there's something you want to play, there's going to be something out there for you, no matter what your interest is. It's long past the times of, it has to be, just a fantasy game. It has to, it doesn't have to be, board games aren't all just, training in the Mediterranean or, miniature combat or anything anymore. It's like there's so much diversity and subject matter out there that, you can go and, find these amazing things with it all. I mean, the game of the year last year was all about bird watching, I mean, that's fantastic. With as far as being able to get, if you can find the right niche that you can work with between your parents and your kids, to be able to, find something you can all sort of agree on and delve into those worlds out of it all. You're on the right track. I mean, one of my favorite little based sort of ones out of it all, and it's one that the Critical Role crew have come across with it all, and it was actually designed by an Australian who I met once out of it. His name is escaping me right now, but it's the Honey Heist little system, and it's just it's literally an RPG on a single page. to the point where it's actually being printed on shirts. So you can have a T-shirt with all your rules for your RPG right on there. And the fact that it's got bears in it already, automatically makes me like it. So it's halfway to Owlbear. So yeah, it's like if you could find that sort of system just to get started out of all of it, and then just let that passion grow out of it. Just take the time and just be open and play around with it all. I mean, we've got a friend of ours, Ben McKenzie, who he's done live shows about sort of D&D based ones. This little system he's done with, called Dungeon Crawl, and he took that concept and then started doing solo work in libraries with kids in after school care, and created these amazing little like little character sheets where the kids could just basically, they've got some simple little rules, and they get a die to go and run around with. And they make up their own characters and they draw them, and they just basically free-form role play with just the basic little amount of guidance and rule set and everything for them to just let them play and just sort of find this great little realm to interact with in it. And it's absolutely fantastic to be able to actually see this sort of thing going on with it. I mean, Lisa from the Double Clicks has done some stuff with it as well over in LA. They have this whole sort of system through from that to go and about dealing with families and kids about sort of learning what RPGs and everything are from it all. There's so many amazing resources and so many avenues now that you can find something for your family. And it doesn't matter what age group out of all of it. I mean, one of my favourite little Twitter accounts out of all is that D&D Grandma.
Yeah, D&D Grandma.
She's, I think she's in her 80s or something now. I think it is. And, and she's
awesome.
She's amazing. And it's just like, it doesn't matter how young, old, there's something there for everybody.
Yeah, I agree entirely with everything you said. I think first and foremost, it's about nurturing whatever it is that they're passionate about, and remembering that tabletop role playing is about storytelling. And so this is potentially a really terrible example, but I'm going to own it. It popped into my brain. I'm going to go with it. I think about the episode of the IT Crowd where Moss runs a D&D game for the guys that are in from out of town, and that show's not entirely without problems. But what I kind of, the thing that I actually really loved about that episode was this idea of stepping into a game where you feel empowered, you have agency, but it also it's a way of dealing with things that you're currently experiencing too. I think a lot of times in life, we're told to push down feelings that aren't seen as positive or useful or helpful. And I think something really beautiful about whether it's performing or whether it's playing a role-playing game is that you're given permission to play in a space where there are no bad real-life consequences. You've got a character that you can create to be whatever you want it to be, and you can use it as a form of self-expression. It can be a really wonderful way to learn more about yourself. And so getting to sit down with your kids and play a game can actually be a really important part of who they discover themselves to be, the things that they want to champion about themselves, the things that they want to grow and develop and become. And that's not to say that your kid wants to grow up to be a barbarian, who has a very dirty loincloth and wants to smash things with a sword. But
she wants to rage.
Right? But I think that being able to play and use your creativity and your imagination is something that can be really limited when you're in school or in traditional forms of education. And there's so many, TED Talks and studies that are about why we need creativity to be happy, healthy individuals, and the ways that creativity can turn into really important ways that you problem solve as an adult. And at heart too, we're all storytellers. It's in our DNA. We've been storytellers since since we've been here on this planet. And so anything that you can do to encourage and nurture that in the areas that kids are passionate in, I think is a really wonderful thing to do. And as Darryl said, it doesn't have to be a fantasy D&D situation. It could be like we played, Mutants and Masterminds with our DM and had an amazing time creating all sorts of kind of modern day superhero, I don't want to say like Marvel Avengers style heroes, but kids if they're not into D&D but they're into the Marvel movies, for instance, they might be really into something like Mutants and Masterminds or
like sci-fi. There's all sorts of Starfinder. There's all sorts of stuff. The kids on bikes is like your Stranger Things. Kids on brooms now. They've got with the that's like doing Harry Potter.
Legally distinct from Harry Potter, legally distinct from Stranger Things.
Very no. I mean, it's like this inspiration.
Inspiration, yeah.
And it's like, but just to have, there's going to be so. I mean, and that's one of those things where like kids have got. Everyone has that sort of that starting point where you sort of see something on TV or film, and like we were saying before with like the Nick Knight and Hulk the Slayer and all that sort of thing. But there's going to be that touchstone that you had early on, and you're like, oh, but I could be like that character. And, I mean, I grew up reading Lord of the Rings from a very early age, and The Hobbit and that. And, I'm not ashamed to say that Gimli and Legolas was my favourite ones. And my early characters are all very much just like, I have the elf who's the mad-ass archer, and here's the stocky dwarf who's going out there and kicking ass with his axe. It was just, they were... You wanted to encompass your sort of like your little hero characters and do your own take on them. Even if it is almost carbon copy at times, but it's like it's a starting point, right? and that's the thing. It's like it opens the door to everything else that comes afterward for it.
And I think there's no wrong way to do it either. I mean, I don't think there's a right or wrong way to play a tabletop game, but.
As long as
everyone's having fun and you're encouraging people to like that kind of self-expressionism that I'm talking about too, because it's also really important, lessons that can be learnt from tabletop games, especially when you're young, you haven't got an awful lot of life experience. You haven't necessarily been given 20 different entrances to a dungeon that just happen to come upon a Medusa that's going to set you in stone and end your life very quickly. But maybe that could teach you the important lesson of not rushing, or of being a bit more perceptive, or of taking your time, or
don't pick the doorway right at the back of the thing.
Don't take the door right at the back of the thing, or or consider your options more. I think there's lots of really cool lessons that can be learned, and the fact that you just get to have fun while you're doing it is wonderful. The things that you remember as a kid, that you really cherish are those moments where you got to have real meaningful connections with other people, especially your parents. And so getting to do something as fun and meaningful as playing a game where you got to beat the bad guy and save the day, or you got the treasure and then you lost it because you did something really silly, but you had a really big laugh about it afterwards. I think that's all the really important stuff. And you know what? It sounds like most parents these days are doing the right thing to support themselves in the process by looking at the YouTube videos, like you're saying, by looking at things like Critical Role. And I would even encourage, like one of the things that I personally really love about Gen Con is getting to see the kids going out with their parents, on a Sunday in particular at Gen Con.
Yeah, the Sunday is usually the family day out of it, and that seeing, that sort of wide-eyed run around from it is extraordinary. Like, I know there's plenty of smaller cons and things from it all, which is probably in ways a better way to sort of start off with it to go with it.
Especially if your kids are overwhelmed by crowds.
But yeah, like
Gen Con is not the place for you.
That element of just being able to to take it from our point of view, for something more local to us, like seeing the kids at PAX in Melbourne is just, it's adorable.
There's one family at PAX Australia that that captured my heart about 3 years ago, and I think it's still my pinned tweet on my Twitter account. But Guardians of the Galaxy 2 had just come out, and the dad had dressed up as Yondu with the really big mohawky thingy. And his daughter he dressed up like Star-Lord. And I saw them and I got really emotional because I thought it was so beautiful, and I took a photo of it and sent it to James Gunn on Twitter, and he retweeted it and everyone went nuts. But I loved that he then replied saying, I'm her father and her daddy, and just the way that they were, yeah, I know. Oh my God. And they were just so happy together, expressing their nerdiness together and the things that they're passionate about. And then I missed the majority of PAX last year because I got quite sick. But I had someone show me a picture of the same dad with his two daughters. The little one was now grown up, and I think he'd had another kid since then, or he had an older child that had come along to join them, and they were all dressed up like the different spider people from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That was them. So one of them was dressed as Spider-Gwen, one of them was I think he was dressed up as Noir Spider-Man, so he had like the trench coat and the hat, and it was just so fantastic. I love seeing, parents, say to their kids, like, what do you, figuring out what the kids are into, and then going, cool, like, what do you want to do with that? And then if the kids are like, I want to dress up as Spider-Gwen or whatever, you go, okay, cool, let's do it. Let's just do it,
Darryl, Jessica, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for your amazing stories. Thank you so much for all thank you for all the laughs, and we're so happy. We're going to have you on again.
Oh, anytime, mate. Anytime.
And thank you so much for giving up your time to be with us too. I mean, it's
got to be damn late there.
It's probably very late there, but also, it's just so wonderful to be able to share a part of your journey too, and being on the show. So thank you so much. It's just so nice.
Like I said, this whole thing is just sort of like, it's so all encompassing and so supportive and wonderful.